Welcome to Jewish Women Talk About Midlife. Hi, I'm Devora Krasnianski, and I've been coaching women for a long time in all areas of life, and more recently in midlife. This time of midlife is exciting, but sometimes also confusing. And so I invite experts to come here to talk about these different aspects of midlife. Enjoy today's episode. I'm really excited about today's topic. Today we have Nathalie Garson, who will talk a little bit about what she does. But the topic is revisiting the definition of success in midlife. And it's such an important topic, Nathalie. I think a lot of people are coming to midlife thinking what's next, and our old definitions of success, of what worked well in the 20s, 30s, and even 40s is a little bit different, and we're feeling that niggling, and we're trying to figure out what is next. So I love the topic of, I think when we redefine what we're looking for, it kind of helps us find it. So Nathalie, as we get started into this topic, can you talk for us a little bit about what you do? And then we'll talk about the topic. So thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much, first of all, for having me, Devora. I'm very excited. I think it's so important to have a podcast that is dedicated to midlife. And it's true, I just turned 50, so I can talk about midlife, but we'll talk about that after. I'm actually a business mentor. I have an online program specifically for Jewish women entrepreneurs who are scaling their business, so who are getting to a certain level of their business and need to scale. And I'm also the founder of the Jewish Women Entrepreneur Global Network, where we have networking meetups every month, and we have an online platform where we communicate, we help each other, we're supporting each other, and we're creating a real interesting and nice and warm and safe sisterhood. And I'm also the host of the Jewish Women Entrepreneurs podcast, where I also have very interesting conversations around what it is to be a woman, Jewish identity, and leadership in business. That's in a nutshell.
Right. So again, from the one part that you are yourself midlife, but I think that the idea that you're working in business with women in businesses, you can talk to. There are people sometimes think that wealth is the definition of success, but there's really so much more.
Right.
And I love that you can really talk to it from your own real experience and from the experience of so many women that are in your groups.
Yes, definitely, definitely. So what's interesting is that I came to this whole discovery by myself from a personal experience. I actually went through a burnout a few months ago, and it made me really think and reconsider and really look at things from a different perspective. And doing my research, I found people that I'm going to quote, and I'm going to, really share what they teach. But it was interesting that I had first gone through that process myself and understood things on how to reevaluate what are my values, what are my priorities. And I realized that, that we have a certain definition of success. I didn't put it like in the first part of your life, because I didn't know that. I didn't consider myself either first or second part. I just realized and understood that success for me was being recognized, was making money, was having a business, a six or multiple 6 or 7 figure business. And that was the reference, and that is the reference for a lot of people, having a business that is thriving, having a team, having hundreds of clients. And while I still think that this is a real important goal, because we do want our businesses to be successful, but when you do go through a burnout, all of a sudden, all of these things don't help you. It's not the money in the bank, or it's not the clients, or it's not the recognition that is going to help you have that, introspection and relationship with yourself, that you need to be able to realign yourself and to refine motivation and to reconsider everything that you're doing. So that's why I started to ask those questions.
So what were some of those questions that you were asking yourself?
Well, the questions that I was asking myself was, and I still am, I'm still in the process. I don't think we can, answer those questions in a few months. It's something that is really dynamic. But the questions that I was asking myself was that one of them, for example, I'm a very big believer in working towards our purpose, right? I called my business the Born to Do business, because I had discovered 6 years ago, which I thought that was my purpose crisis, but now I see that you have many crises throughout life. And 6 years ago, I had already gone through a crisis where I said, what do I want to do? What is my purpose? And so I thought that once and I did create that very successful business that was aligned with my purpose, aligned with my born to do. And I really thought that that's it. I found it. I'm good. I have it. I'm, on the right train, the right track. And so this question around purpose, I realized that it was very dynamic. It's not like you have one purpose and you find it and that's it until the end of your life. It's a little bit like love. You always have to work at it. You always have to invest in it. You always have to rediscover it to find the fire again. And so this was a big revelation for me, that the born to do, like I call it, or the purpose, is something dynamic that could have different dimension, that could evolve. Life takes you to places, people you meet, books you read. And so even if you are in a purpose-driven business or even a purpose-driven life, there is something that could always happen that you have to reconsider. And it's actually not a bad thing. It just takes time to realize that you're not aligned with what you're doing. And this whole time you thought you were. And so it's about realigning all the time. And I always talk about the spiral, and I used to speak about that even before, but it's one thing to speak about it and one thing to be on the spiral.
And it moves around. Actually, it's an upward spiral.
It's an upward spiral, and I used to say that in a very positive way, but when the spiral is, you really have to climb every step, you realize it's a spiral, but it's also an effort. It doesn't always come smoothly. It's not always in a flow. Of course, we want to be in a flow, but I think that this is one of the things that I had to reconsider, which is you can be in a flow a certain part of your life or a certain time, and then things happen and you reconsider. In my case, to give a concrete example, being in the born to do business and having entrepreneurs and helping them has been a joy all the time. I've always enjoyed doing it. But when I started the network 2 years ago, actually, when Corona started, it was something that I hadn't planned. It was really something that emerged very organically, women that wanted to meet online, and we started doing it, and it really started to take a dimension that I hadn't planned. And then my purpose shifted, and I realized that I really wanted to help Jewish women, not only in the business circle, but also in the networking and in the personal development and in even the spiritual connection. And so all of this made me question, like, okay, what is it? Where's my alignment? So it could be a good thing. It is a good thing because it's only good things. But it takes time to readjust, and it takes time to realign. And that's where you have to know that it's okay. It happens. You can, still be in control, or at least even if you're not in control, accept that you're not in control and let it happen. Just let it happen.
And do it with others. To take on all of those thoughts for yourself is very hard. I find it when I work with people, it's that we talk it through, so that to hold on to all of that, and as you're figuring it out, is just a lot of thoughts to be figuring out.
Yeah, definitely. But luckily, I have a lot of tools that I apply to myself. And I also, I have my mentors and I have my coaches and I have people that I work with. Of course, this is really so important to have that feedback, to have that mirror, to be able to let those thoughts out and to realize, what they mean. But going back to the second part of the life, the question that you had before, like, what's the difference between the first and the second? It's really also understanding that it's not that there is something wrong with you. It's also a natural process. There is also, and so I started thinking about that, and then I started reading, and I came across a book from Arthur Brooks. He wrote a book, From Strength to Strength, and of course there's no coincidence. There's only synchronicities. And his book is exactly about that, about, how to redefine happiness in the second part of your life. And so I studied this book. I think it's not even reading it, because I studied it, and I even taught it to my clients. The last retreat that we had, I said, of course we have to talk about business, but we also have to talk about happiness, and we also have to talk about redefining success. And so he says, in his book, he said things that are so natural and so intuitive, but once you put it as a rule or as an obvious validation that this is what you have a right to feel, and it's okay to feel that. So then you say, okay, so I'm good. I'm on the right track. And what he says is that when you redefine happiness in the second part of your life, you come back to basically the basics. You come back to family, to friends, to meaningful work, to spiritual practice, which we all know that they bring some balance. And of course, we always talk about self-care, and we always say you have to have, you know, balanced life and all of that. But I think in the second part of your life, it takes on a whole different meaning. The fact that you have to give this a priority. Your family is a new priority. Your friends, having work that you really find meaningful, and having some kind of spiritual practice. It could be meditation, it could be walking, could be, you know, journaling. But I think that putting this again in the center and saying, okay, now that I've seen what it is to be successful in the version of my first part of my life, I have to remember that there is the long-lasting happiness, and not just the satisfaction that I'm going to get, you know, one thing, you know, a success, and then back to I have to work hard again. So this really made me see things from a different perspective, and I said, you know what, that's really looks like a plan. Looks like a plan. Yes, working. Yes, having a successful business. Yes, of course, doing everything we have to do. But also remembering the priorities and feeding that need for connection, that need for love. It's not just a cliche. It is really important.
And you actually feel it. You feel it. It comes out in everything that you end up doing. Is that without that sense of I'm doing something that feels aligned with myself, you're always like struggling, looking for something, and it comes out.
Yes.
So there's
Yeah.
a lot of. So what
Because
were the questions? Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
I was just going to say, because it becomes not about what you do, but how you do it, right? It's not about the action or the, you know, the decision or the phone call, or it's really how you do it, which makes a whole difference in, you know, in your priorities.
And the energy that you're giving it.
Yes,
So,
exactly. Exactly.
so what were some of those questions that you were asking yourself about purpose?
The questions, well, this is my life's work. Listen, I mean, I thought, you know, that, you know, my life has been a series of purpose crises, and my question around purpose I started, I think, since I was 14 years old. So, so it's not new to me, this work. And it was even something that was so important for me that at some point, that purpose crisis, I created the Born to Do discovery method. Which a few people, not a lot, because it wasn't something that I really advertised, but a few people went through a process of discovering their Born to Do, and I created a method in 6 steps on how to discover your purpose. And those questions around purpose are really like, is this, like some people think that you have one purpose in life, and this is the one, and if you missed it, then that's it, you're, you know, you're gone, it's gone, or you know, you've lost it. Is it that you have to keep on looking for it, like very actively, with anxiety and with, oh my God, what if I don't find it? And what if I missed it? And what if I don't know what it is? And so all of those anxieties, I think, are very, very different from the work that we're supposed to do around purpose. Because once you start putting the, you know, white knuckle energy, like, you know, this, you know, energy of looking and working and having to find it, and what happens if you don't, then you don't let it appear by itself. And there is something around purpose that you need to be able to surrender. Now, surrender, I think, is the hardest thing that I had ever to do. I think that's really, really hard. It doesn't sound hard, but it is really hard when you do it. Really, you really let go. You really open yourself up to, okay, what's next? Like, even like if the universe is talking to you, if you believe in synchronicities, like, you know, if you believe in God, if God is talking to you, whatever it is. I know it sounds really woo-woo and very spiritual. I'm a business mentor, and I'm very down to earth, and, you know, I work with numbers and strategy and marketing, but I do believe that this is something that we have inside of us. And it's like Michelangelo, you know, who was saying, like, his art was only removing all the extra pieces to let the piece of art appear. So it's much more like that. It's like we have that intuition inside of us. We have that information, and we pollute it with our, you know, with our thoughts and our wishes and our anxiety and our hopes. We have to let go, and we have to let it come out, and to enable it to come out, even if sometimes we don't understand or we don't even know what it is. But that's really the work that has to be done, and to my surprise, it has to be done many times, not only once.
And it changes. I mean, our circumstances change, and the different things that happen at us, or actually not at us, but really for us. And I think
Right.
that difference. So it's actually paying attention to it, and what is the message in there? What is the opportunity? And when we are so stressed, we really can't find it. We can't listen to it.
Exactly. It's exactly that. And it's not, wasting so much time in the looking proactively. I mean, of course, there are things that we can do. And my six steps were very proactive and very intentional. And yes, looking at the things that you're passionate about, and looking at the things that you're attracted, and the people that you are inspired by, and looking at the books that you read. And there are techniques and exercises and ways to be able to identify the top of the iceberg, that you can see. But then at the end of the day, it's also surrendering to the process and saying, this is happening to me in terms of, this is what I'm seeing, this is what I'm feeling, this is what my intuition is telling me. And so how do I go about it? And it's not something that you necessarily have the whole roadmap laid out in front of you. Sometimes you just see the next step and the next step and the next step, and you don't necessarily know the whole thing. Now, for someone who, like me, and I'm sure like a lot of entrepreneurs who like to have like a plan or a strategy, or knowing exactly, I'm going to do this and then this and then this, and this is what's going to happen. So having to surrender and saying, I'm just taking the next step, but I don't yet know where this is going to lead, is an exercise that we have to learn how to do.
And again, something else that I was hearing is that it's, when we're talking about success, I know you're a business mentor, and you have but success is not always defined from your business aspect of your life, from your money aspects of your life.
Right. So there is yes and no. I would say that I found, and I did record an episode around, the purpose driven, like the behind the scene of purpose driven, the good, the bad, and the ugly. There is something beautiful about being purpose driven, because of course you want to do good, you want to have an impact, you want to contribute. It's all good. It's really only good things. But having worked with hundreds of purpose-driven, and being a purpose-driven entrepreneur myself, I've also seen that sometimes there is something that happens that you are going to put your purpose in front of your own needs. Like, it's going to be serving your purpose and not necessarily serving yourself. So like, not necessarily making sure that you make money for yourself, but everything is going for the cause, everything is going for the purpose. So it is an interesting balance that we have to find as purpose driven. Yes, doing good for the world, but first doing good for yourself. Because if you don't do good for yourself, then you won't be able to help the world. And on the other hand, like, your motivation is doing good for the world, so it does feed on each other. But I find that being purpose driven is not always the solution to everything. Like, money is not everything, but we still need to have a life, the lifestyle that we want. I'm not talking about, traveling around the world nonstop and buying expensive cars. And I'm talking about having the life that you want for you, for your loved ones, for your kids, for your family. So there is also a rebalancing of, money is not everything in success, but it helps also in having that grounding, being able to, make sure that you take care of your own needs first.
So if you work with women who have totally changed their whole path, if they were working and maybe even financially successful in something, and sort of midlife, then on a whole different path, what was that path like?
Actually, I can't think of an example, because it's not something that I've had to encounter. But I think that when you are in that spiral, that we spoke about, first of all, it's not necessarily in midlife. It could be before, it could be after. But what I have seen in my clients is, and this is because that's something that's very important for me in my way of teaching and my way of mentoring, is really putting alignment first. Like, we have a saying in my program, and everything I say, it's always alignment first. And that looks like someone that is going in a certain direction because they think, this specific entrepreneur thinks that, this is their goal. They want to achieve this amount of money, or they want to achieve this in their business. But then they continue going in that direction, but it doesn't feel aligned. Doors don't open, things don't happen easily. We see that it's a struggle. And so in my way of working, it's always checking the strategy. Sometimes it's a strategy question. Maybe you haven't spoken to the right people. Maybe you haven't, positioned yourself right. So that's, of course, has to be checked. But then we go deeper and we say, okay, is it really aligned? Because if we see that there is a resistance, then the outside is sometimes the mirror of a resistance that we have inside, because we're not really aligned and people feel it. And so this is something that not a lot of business people talk about, because you want to change the strategy, or you want to invest more money, or do a different marketing approach. But for me, alignment is something that you're going to check first. You're going to say, is this really aligned? And most of the time when it doesn't work outside, you look inside and there is a misalignment. And it takes courage to accept it, to observe it, and to say, yes, I'm going in that direction, but really that's not the direction that I want to go. And so then you're realigned. So yes, it does happen a lot. And I'm sure that midlife is a time where you ask questions, but it happens also before, and I'm sure it happens after.
I'm sure. I was just wondering if, like, what are those questions to notice, like something that feels off, or like you say, it's not going as easily as you would think. And so, like, it's a mirror. What are some questions that people can be asking themselves to see if they're aligned?
Well, it's usually, is this really what I want? Is this really what I want, or is it what I think it should look like on the outside, right? So I'll give you an example, and that could maybe, when someone scales their business, when an entrepreneur scales their business, there are not too many ways to scale, right? It's either you sell, horizontal scale, meaning like you sell more of the same product to more people, or you have a vertical scale, which is a strategy where you hire people and they do it for you. Okay, so you go deeper into what you do, but you hire people. Now, in both of those scenarios, you have less contact with the actual client, because either you have more people and so you can be available, as you were in the beginning, or you have people working for you and then they do things that you used to do, so your role changes. And so what I've seen, especially for entrepreneurs, is that when this role changes around the scaling, they have to ask themselves, is this really what I want? Do I want to be managing a team of 5 people? And even if my business is scaling and I'm making more money and I have more clients, but at the end of the day, I find myself managing people instead of doing what I love and being in a project or a people management position, whereas I'm not in touch with either the people or the service or what I wanted to give. And so that is usually a crisis if it's not aligned. If I find myself becoming the boss, which everyone thinks, oh, great, I'm the boss, I'm the CEO. But sometimes it's not what we want. Sometimes we rather stay with the same product and maybe increase our prices instead of hiring someone. So that's where you would not only talk about the strategy, but you would also talk about what is aligned with you. What makes you smile? What makes you shine? What makes you say, oh, great, today I get to do what I love to do? If you end up managing people and that's not what you love doing, then you're going to see problems in the management, in the team, with the clients. Everything is going to not run smoothly. And so then you say, okay, maybe that's not my place, but it's hard to see it on yourself. It's usually because you see things are not working, then you reverse engineer and you ask questions, and then you get to the bottom of it.
And being able to actually make that change back, even if it's going back to, like, I know for several people who were promoted from teacher to principal, and principal is a very different role. And then saying, okay, I actually just want to be a teacher. I don't want all that parent, now we negotiate with all the parents of the school rather than just one class, and the teachers. And so while there may be a little bit of a lot of a salary cut, it just feels better.
Yeah, well, in that case, you can also take the value inside and say, well, I'm realizing that I like teaching, but if I want to make more money, or if I want to take that teaching to another level, then maybe I can teach to more people, or I can teach outside of the school because the school doesn't pay me enough. But the alignment piece here is understanding that teaching is what I love. And so I can decide to go teaching somewhere I'm being paid more, or I can do my own school or create my own online course or whatever it is. But as long as there is teaching, because that's what I discovered, that teaching is my alignment. So once you know that, it's like discovering gold. It's like saying, wow, I know that as long as I'm teaching, I'm going to be good. I'm going to be where I belong. Now, as a business person, I would say, yes, look for places where you can make more money. Don't stay in a place just because you like teaching, and say, okay, I'll just be happy with my salary. There are ways that you can be teaching and making more money. But if the common denominator stays teaching, then you're okay, then you're good. But if you shift that and you become someone else, or you do something else than teaching, or there's no teaching involved, then you'll lose yourself, and that's not going to work.
Right. And so live with that discomfort, to take the message from that discomfort rather than just live with it.
Yeah, it's really about understanding that it's not just like oh, I don't feel like it, or I'm being spoiled, I just want to be teaching. It's that this alignment is what's going to make you successful. So if you bark at the wrong tree, or if you continue going in a direction that's not aligned with who you are, it's not just a bad alignment decision, it's a bad strategy, because this strategy is taking you to a place where you're not going to be successful. So in this case, success has to include alignment.
And that's what you do with people individually and in your network.
That's well, in the network, we don't get to speak about alignment because it's networking. So the network is people that are meeting each other and creating strategic partnerships. But yes, in my program, I speak a lot about alignment. Yes, that's something that is really at the bottom of it. It's something that I discovered on myself that I cannot not see on others. Like it's so obvious when someone is not aligned. And if you don't continue with this alignment, then again, doors are closing and things are happening, and people say, oh, how come I'm not making money? How come I'm not successful at sales? How come I'm not, I can't hire anyone, or how come I'm not can keep anyone? And of course, sometimes there are, you need to change your strategy around sales. You need to change your strategy around hiring. There are solutions, but if it's not aligned, then, it's not going to go very far.
So actually, now someone sent in a question, and we talk about alignment and the need for internal work. As a coach, do you encounter resistance to the need to do internal work? And if so, have you found messages or methods that work to help the person uncover their desire to want to do the work?
Oh, I love that question. So yes, there are a lot of resistance. That's a very good question. I'm sure it's a coach who asked that question because this language is already a language of coach. The resistance happens because, as I'm sure you're familiar, you have two parts of the brain, right? And the part that is more rational, not the part that is creative, not the limbic, brain, but the prefrontal cortex, the brain that is much more rational and much more here to protect you and to make sure that you're safe, is going to be very scared of alignment, because alignment usually means changes. It means that you have to ask yourself hard questions. It means that you have to be ready to change your direction. And the left brain doesn't like the changes, doesn't like if you're going to change any change, doesn't matter if it's the right thing to do, changes is bad. Change are bad for him. So for this part of the brain, so you're going to get so much resistance and so many thoughts and fears and anxiety around making sure that everything stays the same. Even if you're in the wrong path, it's better, according to that part of the brain, to keep you in that no change safe zone. And so the resistance are huge, because they're not only the rational one, but it's also very much connected to self-worth. Because if you don't value yourself enough, or value your happiness, or value your balance, or your flow in life, or you just being happy and doing what you love, then you're going to have all those little voices that say, oh, you're being spoiled, just find a job, or just do whatever, find any clients that you can find. You don't need to be aligned in your, who needs to be aligned? Like, what is this? And so all those little voices and sentences, they're going to make us, doubt and say, maybe I'm not worth it. Maybe, like, who said that I can also be happy and also make money and also be aligned? Like, I cannot have it all. If I have a job, or if I have a business, and I'm, I have money at the end of the month, I should be happy. That should be enough. So all those resistance are coming up very strongly. And funny enough, I mean, it's not funny, but it's the closest we get to the alignment, the biggest those anxiety are. So it's like, it's like the closest we get to to, you know, finding this alignment, the more the fears and the questions and the self-worth and the everything comes up. So the second part of the question, which is what are the tools or the methods to make sure that we overcome those resistance, is to stop with the rational talking. So I am a business mentor. I love strategies and I love, you know, building steps and plans, and everything is very visual and very concrete. But when we get to mindset, or when we get to alignment, or we get to those resistance, nothing works. Like none of those works. Words don't work anymore. And then it's about allowing the person to visualize, to be much more connected, to close their eyes, to do a visualization, and to really look at inside, like just let that person look inside and remove all the resistance, remove everything, and just let them see for themselves. What do they see inside? And that is the true alignment. So all the tools that are more technical tools or strategy tools, they don't work if you want to overcome the resistance. And then once the person has seen with their own eyes that this is where I want to go, then it's much easier to do the reverse engineer and to say, okay, if this is where you want to go, let's reverse engineer to today. What should be your first step so that you'll get to where you want to go?
Okay, thank you. We spoke also about community, the importance of community and not doing this on your own. And I think you have a lot to say about community.
Yes, I do. And actually, it's so interesting as everything is connected, because we spoke before about, you know, spiritual connection, family, friends, having meaningful work. And I find that community answers all of those needs. I find that, and I'm sure that having a community in the second part of your life is even more important than the first part of your life. The first part of your life, you have, you know, a lot of things happening. I mean, usually, not to make any general statements, but usually if you build a family, or if you still have your friends from school, from college, or whatever, you know, whatever circles you have. Second part of life, usually, again, we can make, you know, everyone has their own path, but usually kids are grown up, you know, you don't necessarily kept in touch with your friends from school or from college. And so there is a void and something that you have to fill in, and you have to recreate from a different perspective, because you're still young, but you know, you have so much behind you already. And I find that community, and especially women, especially sisterhood, especially community made for women or by women, have answer a lot of the needs that we have in the second part of the life. So if you think about it, friendships, of course, they all born from communities, because, you know, that's what happens. I know in the network that I have, we've seen friendships, and from people from all over the world, from friends with someone with the US and someone in South Africa, and they're like creating friendships and helping each other and supporting each other, even outside of our meetups, our monthly meetups. So it creates really a big impact. Families, sometimes those friends become like family. They become like really so close. You know, it's really about creating those experiences that you really gain from one another. And meaning, I think meaning is it. That's what gives meaning. You know, you work, you're in a business, you're doing everything by yourself, and then you have that place where people understand what you go through, especially as an entrepreneur. And I see that in my clients, also in me, a lot of people don't understand the work that is involved in being an entrepreneur. You know, like people say, what do you do the whole day? You're in front of your computer, like all the day on Facebook? Like, what do you do exactly? And people don't understand. You have to have someone who knows what is the whole mindset, the whole, what does it mean to be an entrepreneur, how lonely it is, how scary it is, how sometimes, you know, you don't know what's going to happen at the end of the month. Sometimes you have a great news, you don't know who to share it with. Sometimes, so you need that support. Like, you need the fact that someone is going to say, yeah, I understand how it feels. And the spiritual dimension, I think that being especially in a group of Jewish women, because the network that I have is really for Jewish women, even if we don't speak about spiritual topics, there is something spiritual about it. I don't know how to say it differently, but there is a special energy. There is something where people feel safe, people feel connected. And I mean, when you come to those networks, of course, it's business. We speak about business, but at the end, everyone says there is a special energy, there's a special connection. We feel something different than from other networking groups. So yeah, I love communities. I think that this is what gives the, you know, gas in the car. And I think that it's so important, so important, especially for women, because not only in the business dimension, but also in general, I mean, talking about the feminine dimension and talking about, women empowerment, we've been alone for many years, if not centuries. I mean, we've been alone with our own problems, not knowing who to share with. Today, I think this is our strength. This is really our strength to be together and to understand each other and to support each other. I think that this is really important. Yes.
So community for business or for whatever the work that you're doing, but also I think also important is community in person, like going to shul or going to classes or finding a Pilates group together, just in person also. So while we're very busy with our lives, I think that people who understand us as peers, and some of us are not necessarily in business, but also, so we have our families, hopefully that we have some family, but we also are people who are our age and our stage and our understanding, mentors up and down, but people who we can really just chat in person with a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, or a walk walk around the block or walk around the beach or whatever it is. It's not only about community in work, because I think that's
of course. The only thing
to laugh with.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add to that is that since Corona, I mean, we saw that the beauty of connecting online. That's what I think. I mean, Corona hasn't been, good from all aspects, far from it. But one good thing that happened was that we were able to connect online with people from all over the world.
I love that aspect. Like in your group, I met like someone from South Africa. I just found it fascinating. Yeah. I would never have met her without technology.
Exactly. And it's really, I mean, it is really the magic of, so I agree with you that going to a local group and having, your community, that's so important, the in person. And by the way, the whole network that I'm building right now, the goal is to organize a conference in Jerusalem, in-person conference where I hope women from all over the world are going to come, and not only once a year, but having a few retreats. I know that everyone loves to come to Israel, so it's another excuse for people to come. But I do believe in the in-person energy. But while, until we can meet each other in person, having the opportunity to meet people online and to create those relationships and those, even if it's not on a business level, even on a friendship level, I think it's amazing to know that I know someone in South Africa, I know someone in Florida, I know someone in Manchester, I know someone in, in all those countries, I have someone from Mexico. How could I even, so of course we always speak about social media. Yes, on Facebook I can meet a lot of people, but on Zoom I feel, or online space where you actually see the person and can speak and can interact, not just type and like and comment. That is another level of connection. And of course, seeing in person is the best, of course.
Right. So I think it's important, like we're so busy with our online world or texting or WhatsApping, but to find time to actually talk to someone, whether it's just weekly in shul or even once a month for coffee. But I think that's super important. I'm finding that with the people that I work with, that when they finally schedule it, sometimes you have to schedule it, like really put it into your schedule and like hold it sacred, so that you actually talk to people besides your inner circle, which I think is wonderful that you have that inner circle, but to have other people, and just expands your mind, expands the way you think about the world. I just find it to be such an important piece, especially at our age, when for some of us, we are getting some time that we didn't have before. Like we're not doing homework with the kids anymore, or carpool, because our kids all have licenses, which is a whole different fun part. So like, what are we going to do with that time? And it's not always necessarily go back into the work that we're doing, but take some time for ourselves. And self-care can also include being with people. I think that's super important.
Super important. Yes, that's exactly what I was quoting before from, Arthur Brooks from his 4, this is what he calls his routine to happiness. And family and friends, and when he says family, it's not the core family only, it's the extended family. And I agree with you definitely in the scheduling part. I think that if we rely on, let's meet sometimes, let's catch up, let's schedule some time for coffee, it never happens, right? If you don't really sit down. And I know, talking about the past few months that I've been through a burnout, I think that when I realized that, I said, this is my first priority. I called back all my friends, and I made appointments and coffee dates with all of them, even people I hadn't spoken for years, because I realized that, wait, I'm getting lost into this, this whole business success thing, and great, it's working, but I'm losing so much more, and I needed to reconnect. And that doesn't happen by chance. You have to put intention, you have to do it, to really put it in your calendar, and to really say, this is a priority. And it is going to be, taking the instead of something else, because we don't have unlimited time. But I think that it's so important. It is really, really important.
Let's take out your calendar. Now we have our calendars on our phone, most of us, and we can just really take it out when we say, let's connect, let's take out our phone and we'll make it happen. But like you said, it doesn't always happen if we just say, let's connect.
Yes.
It almost never happens.
Yes.
Or if we say, okay, let's say what, at the end of February, like what day in the end of February, what time in the end of February, and let's make it happen. Otherwise, it's going to be June, and then it's going to be August, and then it's going to be February again. And it would have been so nice if we got together.
Yeah, exactly. No, it is a priority. It is definitely a priority.
And recently, several of my classmates, my high school classmates, got together, and we haven't seen each other in 30-something years. It was really nice to reconnect and see that everyone is just having their life hard, up, down, right, left. But we were able to just like really be ourselves again for a few hours. It was really wonderful. And if people are able to do that and pick up their friendships from where they were or not, but it was just really nice to be ourselves again without all the stress. Like, you don't have to always be talking about serious things. You can just be talking about the silly things that we did back when, or the silly things that happened in the last 30 years. It doesn't have to always be business or family talk. It could be just nonsense once in a while.
So I'll tell you, you're reminding me of something that I've done, because like I said, I just turned 50 in November, and it was really in the middle of this whole, questioning and looking for alignment and saying, okay, it seems like I'm facing another yet round of alignment that I have to ask myself, those questions. And because it was my birthday, I actually did an exercise that I recommend everyone to do. It was really, 50, when you turn 50, no one can say no, right? It's your 50th birthday, they say yes to everything, right? But I decided to push it a little bit further. And I decided, like I said, I reconnected with people that I hadn't connected with for a long time. And I actually called this, because I needed to give it a name, I called this interviews. I called my friends and I said, I want to interview you. It's my 50th birthday. I'm turning 50, and I'm seeing that a lot of things are changing. And actually, I wasn't expecting that. So my 50, I was really looking forward to it and everything. I'm not worried of aging or turning old. That's really not one of my fears. But it seemed to happen just around my 50th birthday. So I'm guessing it's not a coincidence. Something must have, happened. And I actually scheduled, and I was traveling at the time, so I could even see some of my friends really abroad face to face. So it was really a great opportunity. And I actually sat down and I asked all of my friends, and then those who I couldn't speak to face, I asked them, by WhatsApp, and I asked the same question to everyone. And I said, if you had to give one characteristic of me, knowing, because everyone knows you from a different context or a different part of life, some of them when I was a kid, some of them when I was older. So I wanted to have all those pieces of puzzles and all those feedbacks and mirrors, and I said, if you had to say one thing about me, what would that be? And explain it, like give me the mirror, and it was fascinating. It was really fascinating. And then what I did, actually my daughter actually did that. It was really a good idea. She actually took a picture of me, and you can create a puzzle pieces from a picture. And so she took those pieces and she wrote behind, like everyone wrote behind, the people that came to my birthday physically wrote, but then everyone else who had sent by messages or I'd met before, and everyone wrote that word in one piece of the puzzle. And so it was really, really cool. And so now I have that puzzle with all those pieces from all of my friends, and also family members, like everyone who knows me and is close to me. And it was so interesting to see that everyone had a different perspective. Everyone saw something else. Everyone was like, this is what I think is the most, the thing that is most characteristic of you. And it was so interesting. So yes, this is something that you can do if you want to steal my idea for your 50th birthday. You can definitely, whoever is listening, do it. It was really a great feeling to feel also not only the words, of course, they were interesting, but also to feel the connection, to feel like everyone was connected. Everyone, there was like even people that didn't know each other were connected by the fact that we knew each other. So that was really really cool.
Did you find that several people had the same things to say?
Yes, some things came back. Some things came back. But I was more surprised by the ones that had something that I really like didn't see coming. Like it was like, oh, interesting that you're seeing it like that. And it's always, you're always learning something on yourself. Like this is how people perceive you. This is how people see you. So it was very interesting.
So I did that similar. I actually asked for a few, not just for the one. I'm wondering if there's how that works if you ask me for give me like 5 rather than 1.
Okay.
Okay. And but what I did is I asked them to give me, and then I wanted to guess for myself where they saw that in me. So some of them was obvious. And then I read where they saw that in me. I found that to be fascinating. So because what it did for me was it actually pulled out more evidence than even the evidence that they had seen. I found it to be really fascinating.
It's so interesting. It's the first time I hear someone else, because I had this idea and then it basically developed with time. Like I didn't, think about it, and then it was like, oh, let's do it. And then one more person, and then I thought, oh, maybe another, and then it became like a thing, for my 50th birthday. But it's interesting that you did the same.
So yeah, I found it fascinating. I wasn't made it into a word cloud, right? It would be cool like the puzzle, but I did it in a word because several people did use the same words.
Okay. Well, if you have 5 words, I can imagine that at the end,
yeah.
a lot of those are, yeah.
But it was also what I found fascinating that they used slightly different nuances of the words. Now, sometimes it was just the person, but sometimes it was like level of intensity of how they saw that. I mean, maybe I overthought it, but I just found the whole exercise so fascinating to see like what people think. And it could be for someone who's really finding an alignment issue, they could really see like maybe there's something what people are seeing about me that I don't really see in myself, that I can maybe figure out a next purpose or a next iteration of my purpose.
I don't know, for me, it was so clear that each person really was a witness of who I was at the time that we were, so it didn't really always, sometimes I didn't see it meaning something from who I am now, because everyone knows you at a different time from a different perspective. And so it was I knew where it was coming from. Let's put it this way. Like I understood that it was where it was coming from. But yes, there was a few like words that of people that know me today that yes resonated and was like an insight to, okay, so that's interesting. It's interesting that it goes in that direction, because that's also where I'm going. But the mirror exercise is always just to confirm or validate something you already know. It's never something new out of the blue that you discover. It's always like, if it resonates, it means that you're already on the way to that. So it's but it's always validating, very much so. Yes,
that's why I found it fascinating to be able to see like, where they see that in me, because some things like only one person said, like if I'm asking for 5, the reason why I did 5 rather than 1 is because I wanted to see the lesser things also, because when you have 1, they pick out the one that is really you. Right. I wanted to see the lesser things.
Interesting.
So 5 to 7 even, because otherwise they still pick out the highlights. And I was looking.
Is it like a well-known exercise that I just made up, or is it just you and me that made up the same thing?
I haven't really read it in the same way that I do it. I just found it to be. I specifically wanted to see what people, the lesser things, so I had to have that number.
Interesting.
I didn't want the most salient, because then I would see that it would be, I knew that.
Yeah.
I was looking for what I don't.
Yeah. For the most like the hidden things, like not the things that are obvious. I get it. Well, maybe I'll do it for my 51st birthday then.
Part 2.
Yeah, exactly.
For the next iteration.
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't want to bombard you last year, but now let's do it.
Yeah, now let's do 5, and no one's gonna come to my birthday party, and then I'll wonder why. Interesting.
So as we're winding down this hour, we said so much, and I'm really, really grateful, and I anticipate that other people will find this very helpful. Let's talk a little bit about your network, and I think you have one coming up this week or so.
Yes.
Let's talk about what that is like to join.
Sure. So we've actually it's been our 2nd year. In January it was 2 years, so now it's February. So we've had a meetup every month. We have around 25 to 30 women that join from all over the world. I think I counted altogether, it has been like 10 countries. And altogether, we've had like 500 people, women that registered. We have a core of people that come back every month because they enjoy it so much. And then sometimes people come once, twice. We also have all types of services and businesses and industries. Like people ask me, is this only therapists and coaches? I'm like, no, it's not. It's very, very, there's a big variety of industries and people that really can see different perspective. And not only, as you know, in a network, you don't only come to get clients in the network, but also to see how you can get maybe referred to someone in the people's network. So it's not just in the room or in the Zoom, but it's also everyone with their own network can also refer you. But what I find fascinating in this group is that beyond the clients, I just had like a few messages of people who said it was great. I got 5 sales calls and 1 contract signed. Another one did a new podcast with someone. And like, there's always like, you know, very, very dynamic, but I find that it's very much the willingness to help. That's what I find is really amazing. It doesn't matter if you need a client, if you need a strategic partner, you need to hire someone, you need to have an idea, you need to brainstorm. There's a big willingness to help. So the way it works is that we meet every month for an hour and a half, 2 hours, depending on how many people come. We start with a 1-minute presentation. So everyone goes through, we go through the whole room, and everyone has a 1-minute presentation where they say where they're from, what they do, what they're looking for. Then we have a 10-minute in-depth presentation. So each month another member takes 10 minutes to present their business more in depth. So if we want to recommend them, 1 minute is not really enough. So 10 minutes, we get a better idea of what they do, who they work with, how we can refer them to someone. And then we go into breakout rooms, which is the part that everyone loves. So the breakout rooms, it's really to network in smaller groups, 3 or 4 people. Everyone has a few minutes to also represent or reintroduce or speak about what they're looking for. And then we come back into the main Zoom, and everyone shares if they have events coming up, special promotions, special discounts. They usually give discounts to people that are part of the network to give them an incentive. And that's it. And then we have in between the meetups, we have an online platform, our dedicated own online platform where people can continue to exchange, to send referrals, to be in touch with each other. And that is happening every month. So yeah, Wednesday, February 1st is our next meetup. It's at 8 p.m. Israel time, so you'll have to calculate your own time zone for wherever you're from. And it's really special. There's a real special energy to it. So
And there's no cost for this at this point.
And it's completely free. The whole network is completely free. I really believe in giving that opportunity for people to meet. And it's really something that it makes a whole difference into how, you know, someone can create a partnership or find new clients. And yeah, you come, there's no cost to it.
And it's not salesy either.
It's not salesy. Well, people do sell.
No, you're not selling that they should join you or anything.
Oh, well, people come because they want to come, you know, so I'm also like everyone else offering my services and saying if you want, you know, to join the program, but everyone else is. And I think that once you all agree that we all agree that this is, you know, we all want to bring clients to each other, but only if it's the right fit, right? Salesy is when you want to push something to someone when it's not for them. If it is for them, then you're actually making them a big, it's a great thing that they can find the service that they're looking for. Like if someone is looking for someone to help them in marketing or in copywriting or in social network, and they say, hey, this is what I do. Oh, great. I've been looking for someone like this. Perfect. So there's no sales because it's, you know, that's what I offer. That's what you have. Great. Let's do it.
I love the collaborations that can happen.
Yes. A lot of collaborations. And I think that the energy, I mean, listen, I started this really organically, like I said, and I was like, yeah, let's, you know, people want it, let's do it. And it's from the feedback that I'm getting this, like everyone is saying there's such a special energy in this group and there's such a connection. So there must be something, that people keep on coming back. And yeah, it's really a great collaboration.
So Nathalie, where can they reach you or reach reach you separately from this network that we're having on Wednesday?
So we have a Facebook group. You can look up on Facebook, Jewish Women Entrepreneurs Global Network. So it's a long name, but you just remember Global Network or Jewish Women. And we have events on Facebook and on LinkedIn. So I'm promoting every day. So if you look for me, my name, or if you look for the group, you'll find probably somewhere a promotion. We have a registration page because you have to register because we have seats are limited, so we can't, let everyone in. So at some point we close the door, and so if you register, then your seat is saved. But I think the best way is really Facebook or LinkedIn. That's the best way to find me.
And I'll put it in the show notes so that you can find it.
Perfect.
So thank you so much, Nathalie. This has been so helpful, so insightful.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for this very interesting conversation, and thank you for the work you do, because I really, really think that there is a special, focus on midlife, and it's very important that women know where to turn, or, that what they go through is not something weird, like, it's happening.
Oh, there's so many of us in midlife,
Yes,
and the numbers are getting there's so many, and there's so much. And everyone's experience is different, but still doing it together with other people is the idea of the Jewish Women Talk About Midlife. And of course, if anyone has any questions about midlife, they can reach out to me, jewishmidlife@gmail.com. So thank you so much, Nathalie.
Thank you, Devora. Thank you so much.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you for joining me in another fascinating conversation about midlife. If you'd like to reach me, Devora Krasnianski, to talk about your midlife or anything else, you can reach me at jewishmidlife@gmail.com, and follow us at Jewish Midlife on Instagram and Facebook, and join us in our conversations in our Facebook group at facebook.com/group/Jewish Women Talk About Midlife.